we all know how crude oil prices have spiked ever since a sudden production cut by OPEC. So we thought of getting you a discussion with someone who's a global authority in matters of energy. Joining me today is Dr. Fereidun Fesharaki, who is joining us from the beautiful location of Hawaii, Honolulu. Dr. Fesharaki, thank you so much for your time. I was just going through the report and my eyes almost popped out that you're making a case with the recent developments which have happened in the environment that crude could even head to $100. Talk to us about what's the hypothesis you're building.
Well, usually OPEC intervenes when they feel that there is something wrong. The demand is very weak, or inventories are building up, or different people may be overproducing. And none of those conditions are present. The demand is very strong. Inventories are neutral, sideways, they don't go up. And nobody is able to overproduce. So the move was a great surprise. And OPEC must have thought that they are preventing something which may be happening in the next few months. And they wanted to preempt it by cutting the production early enough. So it took us all by surprise. And $100 easily achievable, and even more than that is possible.
Fesharaki, there is also an argument on the table which says that OPEC of course, they may have been a little more ahead of time, but it is also a sign, this move production cut is actually a sign that demand is weakening ahead going forward in the next couple of months. And so they have taken a preemptive step to adjust that. What are your thoughts on demand trends?
Well, we don't see it. Frankly, we see the demand quite strong. We see the demand growth this year, 2.5 million barrels per day, of which maybe 1.5 million barrels per day is COVID recovery, and 1 million barrels per day based on the strength of the market. So very bullish on the demand side. So if OPEC is seeing something, we don't see it at this stage. It is possible that they've had difficulty finding customers in Asia, particularly in China and India, as they're buying so much Russian crude. So they say, okay, we see some weakness in, maybe not in demand, but in procurement, and taking some action. I'm sure they have good reasons, but as of today, we can't see why they did it.
Dr. Fesharaki, there is a saying in global energy markets, an old saying that oil business is 1% business and 99% politics. How are you witnessing geopolitical, tension between some of the large geographies which consume a lot and produce a lot as well? For example, US has now become a net producer, net exporter of oil. How are those equations also playing a part in energy markets right now and these steps which are being taken?
Actually, I don't agree with the theory of 99% politics, 1% oil. I think that is 70, 80% of it is fundamentals, supply demand, and maybe 20% politics. So maybe that was true 20 years ago, but not today. US now is the largest producer of oil. And if you add crude and products together and condensate, the US is exporting more than Saudi Arabia. But US is also a huge consumer. And consumer means that most of the oil that they produce, they end up using it themselves. So they are different from Saudis, where they have extra oil that they export and they can control it. In the US, there are small producers, private producers. The government almost has no role in this matter at all. The government is just a bystander. So private companies run the show. But the geopolitics do impact things. At the moment, we see the Saudis and the Iranians reaching a diplomatic solution. We don't see any big geopolitical issues in front of us. In case of Russia, the price cap for Russia has failed. Russian oil still is flowing pretty much as before. And the Russians are basically replacing all of Europe with China and India and Turkey. And oil is still flowing at discounted prices, of course, but the flow of oil cannot be stopped by politics.
Dr. Fesharaki, how do you see the role of China reopening and economy coming back? Some say that it has actually been slightly on the softer side, the China reopen, versus what they had estimated earlier. So demand did not come back in the in a big fashion in China, and that is why OPEC actually took these steps to adjust the production. What are your thoughts on China demand?
You know, the difference between China and India is that in China, only one person decides everything. In India, 10,000 people have to decide everything. That's why things don't get done so easily. In China, based on what we understand today, we are still pretty bullish about the recovery. It may not be as great as everybody had hoped for, but it's still 600,000 to 800,000 barrels per day of demand growth. So most of the demand growth, both in COVID recovery and economic growth, still we expect in China. So we remain quite bullish. Now, maybe the Saudis see some weakness at the end of the road in there and decided to preempt. But, for the first time last month, China imported more crude from Russia than India did, 1.4 million barrels per day. And Chinese also are exporting refined products based on the cheap Russian crude. Substantial amount, more than 1 million barrels per day. So it is still not 100% clear that they will recover as quickly as we all hope for, but the signs are very positive.
Fesharaki, in traditional economics, the formula which applies is that for market share gains or gaining market share, a lot of companies go ahead and start cutting prices to compete in the marketplace. Over here, the two biggest buyers, China and India, biggest buyers of crude, are now tilting more towards one big supplier, which wants to digress away from Europe to other buyers towards us, which is Russia. How is the market share dynamic playing out in the global energy market, from the big producers' point of view?
Well, the oil market is like a big swimming pool. If you take one bucket of water from one side and throw it to the other side, it's still the same swimming pool. So before, the Russians were supplying a great deal of oil to Europe, and the Saudis, Iraqis, and the Kuwaitis were supplying, and the US was supplying China. Now, China and India, they are buying more from Russia and buying less Saudi crude, less Middle East crude, less US crude, less Kuwaiti crude, less Iraqi crude. So the market balancing itself still. If there is a willing buyer and a willing seller, oil moves. So there is big swimming pool. In the LNG market, there is not one big swimming pool. There are many small pools which are not connected. But the oil market is connected. And so far, everybody who wants the oil can get it. The people who make a lot of money are the shipping people. To bring a barrel of oil from Europe to India may cost $15 a barrel of transportation because it's in the wrong place. So a lot of extra money is paid by the people who want to do the shipping outside of the normal, natural home markets. But there are now 600 ships in the so-called dark fleet, which is not registered by anybody. They're small, old ships. And people are there and they are moving the oil without having to worry about the European insurance, European price cap, and all the rules of G7. So it is moving. Surprising to everybody else, it is moving much better than everybody expected.
Dr. Fesharaki, how are the inventories standing right now, world over by great producers, big producers, and what is the role of inventories actually playing out?
Well, inventory, you can define it as the running inventory. Running inventory is flat, but in terms of the surplus capacity was 2 million barrels per day. Now it's 3 million barrels per day. So it gives a little bit of more safety and security in case there is a turbulence in the market, because those with the extra capacity can come in and fill the hole. The market feels very worried if the excess capacity is less than 2 million barrels per day. Today, with this latest move from April 4, the excess capacity is over 3 million barrels per day. So it makes the supply security much more acceptable.
Dr. Fesharaki, one last question. Coming back to the main hypothesis which you had, that possibility of $100, how much probability would you assign to that, and what kind of time frame, given the way economic data is coming, demand trends, in running inventory, all of that? Are we talking about a 6 months kind of a window where $100 prices edging towards that is possible, and how much probability would you assign to that?
I think probability is 90% or more. So when you do the balances, it's obvious that second half of this year would be very hard to contain. So when would it go reach there? It would be third and fourth quarter, and definitely by early 2024, and may go higher than $100 too. So $100, $95 to $105 is our assumption.
That's a very big takeaway coming in, Dr. Fesharaki. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Dr. Fesharaki is a global authority on energy. Everybody listens to, actually is making a case by third or fourth quarter of this year or early next year, we should be ready for $95 to $100 base, but the window is also open for higher prices from there. China recovery has been strong, and the dynamics are actually favoring and that the higher prices, and that is the reason OPEC came and actually surprised the world with the production cut. It is very relevant for emerging markets like India, who are big importers of crude. Yes, we have started incrementally importing more at a discounted price from Russia, but still, large part of our crude import basket, it's important for our viewers and market watchers to know, still is Saudi and rest of the world crude. So our basket does get impacted. So you need to keep an eye on that fundamental, which Dr. Fesharaki was pointing out very closely. With that, guys, it's back to you in the studios.
Yes, indeed. Those are some of the top takeaways. Thanks very much, Ajay. Also, Dr. Fesharaki saying that OPEC may have had a good reason to cut production, but as of now, he doesn't see it.